We are making a spring pink ranunculus arrangement today. We have this embossed daisy milk can, and we are cutting some styrofoam down to size to fit in there. You will normally want to use a nice sharp knife to cut this. There are different tools you can use. We could not find our knife, so we are using a box cutter today. A knife works much better. We can't get it to go quite all the way through. I think we're going to use something else. So we are going to use actually some floral wire to cut through it. That works a little bit better. And then just pull that off and size that up and see how it fits. It's still too tall, so we need to cut some off of the end. Cut a piece off and pull that off. Let's see how that fits. We do want enough in there so that it fills it up to almost the top of the jug. So just kind of work its way down in there, gently pushing it down in. There will be some resistance, but shove it in there and it will be nice and full of foam. And then we're just going to shave some off the top so it's not, we don't want it above the rim of the milk can. We're going to add a little bit of hot glue around the foam just to help make sure it's secure and stays in place and isn't going to come out of the container. And it'll also help hold the moss in place. So just spread a little bit of moss to cover the foam so you don't see that. A little bit goes a long way, and you can always add more after you're done with the arrangement to fill in. So we've got the pink ranunculus that will be our main focal point, and then we have these mini mum filler flowers to fill in, just like it says. And then we're gonna also finish it off with a couple of these moss curly sprays that will add a little extra touch to it. And by the way, you can find all of these supplies at thewreathshop.com. You want to measure your stems up against the container. The rule of thumb is that you typically want your stems to be 1.5 to 2 times taller than the container. And if you ever forget, just Google it. Google is great. You can find everything there. So we're going to trim this bush down a little bit. And if you have trouble cutting the stems, there's usually a little line in the bush or stems where it's already somewhat indented, somewhat cut through, where it's easier to cut. So pick that spot to cut through to make it a little bit easier. Now we're going to take our ranunculus bush and spread it out. That's a big tip right there. Any bush or stem you get, spread each stem out and you can really get a lot more coverage. They're often wired or just very mobile, and you can really work them to get a lot of coverage. We're actually going to go ahead and cut a few of these off on the outer edges, just so we have a little bit more flexibility with our design and we can get everything where we would like it in the arrangement. We have the main part of our bush still that's going to be the center of our arrangement. So we're just going to put some hot glue on the end of that. Get it real good and then place it in the center and just gradually work it down in there. until it's at the height that we like it, and it can go all the way down to the bottom if you want. And then once it's in there, you can just start playing with it. Spread those stems back out. Get them spread way out for that coverage. And you can move the leaves around as well. You can move some up and move some down. Just get everything where it looks nice and covered. You can stagger the leaves on each individual stem and put them in different places so you don't end up having a bunch of green leaves all in the same place in your arrangement. So just get those staggered and your stems spread out. And then we're going to grab the other stems that we cut off, and we're going to place them around the outside. These are our shorter pieces that will give us the lower height to fill in the arrangement. So we'll take each stem and place some glue at the end and then place them in all around the edge. You still don't want them all at the same height around the edge though, so you want to stagger the heights, so do some shorter and some taller. And if you realize you put one in and you want a different color there, but you've already glued it, this is a little trick. You just pop the top off and change them out instead of trying to dig that glued in stem back out. And there you go. You can just switch your colors around. And we're done with the ranunculus. Just pick up some of the leftover moss and stick that back in there to cover up some of the styrofoam. And we'll take the white minimum filler bush and start preparing that. So we'll clip off each of the stems from this. We don't want a big bunch anywhere. We're just filling in. So we're separating all of the stems. And we don't need these long or tall since they're just filling in, so we're going to trim them down and make them a little bit shorter. We always hold our stems up against the container and arrangement to see if it's the right length before we place it. So we're just measuring that and checking it. And it looks good, so we'll place a little bit of glue and place that in there. There still are multiple flowers on each stem, which is good, and they're spread out at different heights. So that just makes it nice and easy. And we'll just keep doing that all the way around. Take another stem and spread out the flowers and place it, just filling in, giving the arrangement some nice coverage. The pops of white from these flowers look nice, and it really helps give it a nice full look. And we have all of our flowers placed now. So you can pick a side that doesn't have as many florals, isn't as filled in, and just use that as the back of the arrangement. So this will be the back. It still looks good, but not quite as full as the other side. And this is our front, nice and pretty and full. And now we're gonna take a moss curly spray, and there are 2 big sections of it with 3 little curls on each section. So we're going to cut those sections apart and use them separately. And again, spread these stems apart a little bit, get some more coverage, and we're gonna trim this a little bit. It's a little tall. And we're going to place each one of these on the sides of the arrangement. So we're adding a little bit of glue to the end again to secure it, and then placing it in. You don't necessarily have to use glue, but if you're going to sell it or ship it, I would suggest using glue to make it secure, make sure nothing's gonna come out if they pick it up by the stems. And then we'll take the other stem and just place it on the opposite side from the one we just placed. Once it's placed in there, you always want to move the flower stems around it to kind of cover it a little bit, make it look a little natural and not like it's just sticking out like a sore thumb. Now everything is placed, so just play around with it, and you can move the stems around, get it how you like it till it's nice and pretty. And then we'll add a bow on to finish it off. We're going to add a hot pink bow now. So we're going to take the ribbon and measure it against the container to see how long we want our tails. And we're going to do it about 10 inches long for the tail. place that in there, leaving that 10-inch tail, and then we're going to start our bow. This container's a little bit more narrow at the top, so we're going to do about 4.5-inch loops on each side, and we're going to do 4 loops total, 2 on each side, with each loop measuring about 4.5 inches. Just pinch that center and set it down in between the dowels. You can spread the loops out to make sure they're how you want them, and make sure the loops look like the right size. Make sure everything looks good, and match your tails up to make sure they are the same length. And then you can trim them and then also dovetail them. We're going to slide our bow up off of the Easy Bow Maker and grab 2 zip ties. We're going to take 1 zip tie and wrap it around the center of the bow and use that to secure it. So pull it fairly snug, but not too tight. You got to leave a little room, because we're going to take the second zip tie and place it underneath the first zip tie. So slide it through the back of the bow underneath the zip tie, and then pull the first zip tie nice and tight, securing the other zip tie in there. And then you can fluff your bow, and we're going to use that second zip tie to secure it onto the arrangement. You can snip off the excess of the first zip tie that we're done with. Just trim that off so that doesn't get in the way, leaving the second zip tie still there. We'll get rid of the bow maker. We're done with that. Now, if you want to, you could just attach that zip tie onto one of the handles of the milk jug or glue it on there. But what we're going to do is we save the stems from the floral pieces that we cut off, the wired stems, and we're going to use that. So you take your pliers and bend it, get it nice and a nice tight bend in there, and squeeze it tight. And then you take your zip tie and run it through that bend and secure it nice and snug. And then this makes the perfect little stick for you to stick into the foam and into your arrangement. Now, we didn't have the right kind and right length available from this arrangement that we made, but we just saved them from other arrangements, so whatever you're making, you can keep them from. So we just put some glue on the end of that and poke it on into the foam, and it makes it simple and easy, and it places it just perfectly. And fluff your bow and your flower stems, and there you go. You have this beautiful spring floral arrangement. And again, you can find all of these supplies at thewreathshop.com. We will add all of the links in the details below, and be sure to like and subscribe to see more of our wreath making, florals, crafting, etc.